Post-Millennial has this article. During Monday's episode of ABC's The View, the co-host conversation about Martin Luther King Jr. Day led to sparring over how learning about slavery and other human rights abuses in American history should make white students feel. While Anna Navarro argued that nobody should feel bad while being taught about the past simply because of the color of their skin, Sara Haines was adamant in her belief that white children must feel responsibility for the actions of their forefathers. Here's the clip.
I think there's more to it than that. Look, I think what it is that Black history and other things, banning books, has been weaponized for political purposes to drive people to the polls based on outrage because my poor little white kid is feeling bad because he's learning about slavery. That's ridiculous. Learning about history should not make anybody feel bad. We learn about history.
It should make you feel bad.
No,
but it's important that it makes you feel bad.
I don't think it should make you feel bad. I mean, I don't think a white child that's had nothing to do with slavery should feel bad about slavery. I think we need to learn history so that we don't repeat the same mistakes about history.
The thing that people are focusing on in that clip is the conversation about how white kids should feel. But even before you get there, just even the phrase "poor little white kid," oh, you poor little white kid. This is once again this total contempt and scorn being heaped on white people without hiding it, without covering it, without feeling the need to hide it at all. And all you have to do is imagine what it would sound like for someone to say, "Oh, your poor little black kid, your poor little black kid, boo-hoo." Like you can't imagine anyone on television using that phrase, like in any context. You just can't imagine it. It would never happen. And yet there is, there's no compunction. Don't hesitate at all to use this kind of language when talking about white people. And it's not sustainable, I guess is the point. And people like me have been warning this for a long time, and you can reject the warnings, but it is just not sustainable. You cannot take one, and I think history has taught us this. History has taught us this again and again and again. It's maybe one of the primary lessons that history teaches us. You cannot take a group of people and make them the villains, make them the bad guys, and just heap nothing but scorn and contempt on them all the time and expect it to just continue that way. Without any blowback, without any pushback, and everything's gonna be fine. You can't expect that. And it's really as simple as that. Now, obviously, the stuff about slavery is completely ridiculous. Now, if you mean that kids should feel bad in the same way that you feel sad when you read about any bad thing that happened in history, like if you read about the Titanic sinking. Does that make you feel bad? I mean, it doesn't make you feel good, right? It's a sad thing, so you have feelings of sadness when you hear about a tragedy that occurred in history. But feel bad usually means feeling responsible, feeling guilty. It's like when you've done something, you say, "I feel bad about that." Which is why nobody would ever say, "I feel bad about the Titanic's sinking." I feel really bad about that. Geez, sorry about that, I feel bad. Because it makes it sound like you're holding yourself responsible for the sinking of the Titanic, which of course makes no sense. It equally makes no sense to say that about slavery. I feel bad about it. What do you mean I feel bad? I didn't have nothing to do with it. So no, in that sense, of course, white kids shouldn't feel bad about slavery in the sense of feeling guilty and responsible, which is the sense that it was meant there. But of course, the whole premise of the conversation is totally false. And we keep it's one false premise after another from the left. This is maybe the most among the most absurd of all of them is this: that there are people out there who are objecting to slavery being mentioned in a historical context at all, which is not happening. Nobody objects to white kids or kids of any race learning about slavery in history class. I've not heard one single person ever say that, which is really saying something, because you could take any You take any idea, any like nutty, crazy idea, these days especially, you could probably find at least somebody who believes it. But in this case, I have not heard this anywhere. I have not heard one single person ever say that we shouldn't be teaching about slavery in school. I've never heard that. As we head towards a presidential election in November, there's one thing you can be sure of. 2024 will be a tumultuous year. How will your hard-earned savings fare? Well, you already see the impacts of inflation at the pump and the grocery store. The dollar continues to lose buying power faster than wages can increase. How are you protecting your savings? Consider diversifying with gold from the Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been the choice of investors and central banks to hedge against inflation. If you have an IRA or 401k from a previous employer that's just gathering dust, call Birch Gold, and they will help you convert it into an IRA in gold. You won't pay a penny out of pocket. They'll simply convert that 401k into physical gold, which, unlike digital currency, can't be tampered with. Just text Walsh to 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, and the exclusive gold company of the Daily Wire for 7 years running. You can trust Birch Gold. Text Walsh to 989898 to claim your free info kit. That's Walsh to 989898, and secure your savings now. The point about slavery, aside from the one that I've made many times, which is that a real study of slavery should be far more expansive to include, the fact that slavery was a global institution for millennia. So, if anything, my point about it is that no, we shouldn't be saying less about slavery. We should be saying more about it. Actually, I mean, it is one of the significant facts of the history of human civilization is that this institution existed for thousands of years. And it's very interesting to think about why that was the case. How did this come about in the first place? How is it that for thousands of years humanity took this for granted? And for thousands of years, really, almost nobody even thought to object. Like honestly, for thousands of years, it really didn't even occur to anyone that there might be a problem here. And that includes many of the great geniuses of history. It didn't appear to have a fundamental issue with the institution of slavery all across the world. That is, it's an interesting fact. It's also a tragedy. It's terrible, but it's interesting. It's like that's something you could try to figure out. How is it? How could you have this kind of global blind spot that so many people shared for thousands of years? That should be a subject of historical investigation, but it's not. Because when we talk about slavery, we only talk about it in the most limited way possible. Because we are not allowed to admit that every other race of people are also guilty for this institution that existed for thousands of years. But aside from all that, at a more fundamental level, the point about slavery is that it is a historical subject. It is a matter of history, and it should be studied and viewed that way. And so as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're doing that, it's a historical subject. It's not something, at least in this country, that exists today or that people today are responsible for, at least in this country. You have to keep qualifying that way because it does exist in other parts of the world, especially in non-white parts of the world. It was a much more expansive phenomena than what we're told. So like those are my 2 points about slavery. I think, and that's the point that most people make if they have any objection at all about the way that it's taught. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.